Hey, hi, hello, good morning. Welcome back, Alexandrian Codex. It's about 6:30 a.m. Tuesday, May 31st, 2022, and I just want to take a look at this Sirius Sector Freelancer mod that I've been working on for almost the last month. I skipped stuff right off the bat. Perfect. I'm so used to just booting right in and testing shit. Ignore these pre-scripted nations. Those are just mine for when I'm actually playing. Let's run through the factions we currently have in this mod. We have the Great Houses of the Republic of Liberty, Kingdom of Bretonia, Empire of Kusari, the Rhineland Empire, the Kingdom of Gallia, the Solum Kara, the Nomads. Apparently this is what they're actually called, according to... oh god, I can't remember. The Discovery Wiki? Sure, we'll go with that. The Sirius Coalition, Corsair Empire, Nation of Malta. Now the Kingdom of Gallia and the Sirius Coalition were added by mods, the Discovery Freelancer mod. Actually, the Sirius Coalition is a combination of the Coalition faction from the lore, the Coalition faction from the Discovery mod, and the Coalition faction from the Crossfire mod. Because just make everything go together, why not? Right now, I have half of their civics done. These civics are more temporary stand-ins, describing the armaments of the Navy and giving bonuses depending on the bonuses of the type of weapons that their navies use. I intend to further flesh this out by making it so that Liberty, for example, gets access to plasma weapons, and Bretonia gets, oh god, particle weapons, Kusari gets neutron weapons, etc, etc, etc. Everyone will have access to laser weapons and photon weapons. Photon weapons are essentially disruptors, lasers are lasers. And we'll go over the weapon changes later on. Yeah. I'm still iffy about if these should be criminal organizations. I just really hate the way that criminal megacorps work in Stellaris. I think it's like anti-fun, but it does fit the Corsairs and the Outcasts better. But with that said, we'll pop right in. Ship sets I haven't even started with. The soundtrack I haven't even started with. The background, etc, etc. A lot of GFX, a lot of localization, a lot of stuff like that. Haven't done yet. I don't currently have custom origins because they don't matter. They don't matter. I'll tell you right fucking now, they don't matter. Origins are just events and civics by another name. And I already have pretty much all the starting game features in that I want. I could repackage it in Origin to make it look fancier. I don't fucking want to do that. So we have all of the vanilla... we'll pop into observe here. Vanilla systems for Freelancer, you know, New York, Colorado, Texas, California, Cortez, etc, etc, etc. And then we have... I'm just gonna press play to get rid of those. About 200 additional systems from mods. Discovery particularly, as well as Crossfire. I think I've incorporated about 99% of Discovery systems and around 80 to 90% of Crossfire systems. That's why we're seeing the Galaxy Sector be as populated as it is. Now you'll note, this is a key feature of the mod that I really like how it plays, so it's staying. There are no initial hyperlink connections. Those will be established via event. If we go in here, I don't want to type the whole thing out, but I pressed the key enough to make it so. I should have started typing. There we go. I have events that start spawning in hyperlink connections, like event number 1 there connects us to Texas at a certain date. And at another date, we'll get 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 200, 300, 300, 400, 401, 500, 501, and 600 to make the hyperlanes go from this to this. Again, these are slowly introduced over time, lining up with the canon time frame for when initial systems were first surveyed or colonized, whichever is actually written in the lore. Then for about 40 years, it's only systems that are connected via jump gates that are accessible. According to the lore, it took about another, 200 years for jump holes, which are the vast majority of these connections, to be discovered. I have things occurring about 4.1 times faster than our timeline, so everything fits within 200 years, 2200 to 2400, rather than the 820-something years of Freelancer lore. A lot of that's empty time. Now, there's still some, in air quotes here, historical events I want to add in, changes in governments, primarily political movements. Currently, we have megacorps like Ajira Technologies, Crier Pharmaceuticals, featured as Synth Foods Incorporated, featured as Planetary Deposits. I'm pretty happy with this. I want to have these spawn in at specific dates, so I'll have to go in and do that. It's very easy to do, I just haven't done it yet because I want to test the impact. I was thinking about pre-scripting in specific wars, but I'm really leaning against doing that at this point. And at this point, we can just let it play out. So the way this typically plays is very slow, very methodical. Actually, we don't want this to play. And it tries to really capture this feeling of, okay, you've just been yeeted halfway across the galaxy. Setting up a new planet takes a long time. Claiming the initial solar system, or stellar system, I guess, takes a long time. And then you start exploring, and that takes a while. And then you start exploring, and that takes a while. And then, you start steamrolling to the point where everything's unlocked. The Nomads serve essentially as a standing crisis right now. There is no crisis. It should be disabled, but sometimes weird shit happens. The Nomads start with a Dyson sphere. And they start with all their connections open up here, and all of these fucking things are Nomad space stations, which I've turned into tiny machine worlds. I'm still on the fence about that. I might turn them into habitats. We'll see what happens. Basically, they ball out of control in isolation, get really powerful, and then at endgame year, or not at endgame year, that's how it used to work, at 2400-ish, they connect with the rest of the galaxy, and being determined exterminators, they start going crazy. Gallia and the Sirius Coalition also start out separated. They pop in like a year or two earlier to make it so that the galactic community does not spawn until endgame, because there's no precedent for a galactic community until post-Nomad invasion in, in Discovery lore and Stellaris lore, there's no precedent. Also, according to the history, Gallia isn't there until around that time. Lowering minefields they built on the border, I think. I don't know, man, I didn't write it. Coalition shows up after the Nomad War, I think. Yeah, Crossfire's lore is a steaming pile of hot garbage. It is poorly written, bad grammar, written by... It feels like written by a child, and I don't mean that derogatorily. I mean, I guess I do, but I didn't take a lot of lore and history notes from Crossfire. In fact, I had to fix a lot of their systems to make sense according to, physics and astronomy. Astrology? No, astronomy's the right word. Astrophysics, and to incorporate them into the universe in a less jarring way. I've moved a lot of them around. Essentially, Crossfire has, after the Nomads are defeated, a new system is discovered called the Crossfire system. And it's connected to fucking everything on the map, and it's crazy. And then everybody goes and calling out. No, it's like power creep written by a 13-year-old. But still, you know, it's content that I didn't have to originally come up with. I've taken some creative license with some of these systems, especially with the hyperlink connections, to make it somewhat coherent, not a complete mess. And yes, I'm describing this as somewhat coherent in comparison to what it would be if I just took the connections that Crossfire did, which are obscene, and the connections that Discovery's done through all of its iterations. This would just be an incomprehensible web. And it's already kind of incomprehensible because of shit like Omicron Theta having to connect up here and down here according to the lore in vanilla. And if we don't keep the original Freelancer lore, then what are we? Tech. So technology I'm still working on. Right now, basically it consists of, I've cut out a shit ton of technologies, traditions, ascension perks, that's what they're called, ascension perks, not traditions, that don't fit in with the lore. And now I'm starting the arduous process of adding content back in to fill the gaps. Keep in mind, the mod has been live on the workshop for 2 fucking weeks. This is an incredible amount of work for 2 weeks. One person who had never done, I had never created a custom galaxy before. I had never created custom species this way before. I had never done any of this GFX work. I had done no event coding work. I had done none of this shit. And it's all working reasonably well. And I am very, very satisfied in that. So technology right now, we have, and we'll probably be able to, oh god, see it here if we do. Okay, the preview shouldn't look this big, and it bugs out, but it's fine. Right now, Gamma Lasers unlocks all of these different weapon types. Basically, it's just laser variants until you get the Gamma, and then it splits off. I intend to make these standalone things that you have to research. It's really just connected to Gamma Lasers right now because I haven't done that yet and I want it to be playable. So, phase disruptors, plasma cannons, they're not what you think they are. I haven't rewritten the localization on these. Basically, in Freelancer, there are 8 different types of energy weapons. Lasers, plasma, phase weapons, particle weapons, pulse weapons, particle weapons, tachyon weapons, neutron weapons, photon weapons, and what are called direct weapons. I haven't added direct weapons because they're kind of catch-all for shit that doesn't fit into the first 7. I'll explain the differences between those 7 things, Alex. I don't wanna. I'll level with you. I don't wanna. They're nuanced, and they break their own rules, and they're inconsistent, and really, I think it's a bad system. I think this should be like 4 types of energy weapons max. But I did not make Freelancer. I am only trying to somewhat faithfully incorporate it here. So what each of these do is inconsistent. Supposedly, lasers fire faster. Pulse weapons do more damage. Plasma weapons do a lot more damage, but at a lower rate of fire, and lower range, and more energy. Particle weapons have a greater range. Tachyon have a greater range, greater amount of damage, but at a lower rate. Photon have a rate equivalent to lasers, but less damage. Neutron do more damage. And that's what the description in-game in Freelancer tells you. But if you look at the stats of all the weapons assigned particle, tachyon, neutron, whatever, the in-game stats tell a very different story. So what I did was I took all of the weapons from Freelancer, all of them, I averaged out their stats based on the type of weapon type that they were, and I compared them to the baseline for the comparison, which was lasers. And then I said, okay, this is going to be 110% of laser. This will be 90%, 80%, 60, 50, whatever, whether we're talking about the refire rate or the amount of damage. I did that, and then I had to make it so that basically they're all equivalent, because otherwise the AI will only use one, and you'll know, oh, today the AI is using tachyon. Okay, cool. Yesterday they were using gamma lasers. That'd be why. The amount of damage is roughly equivalent. But because of the nuances of they don't fire at the same rate, they don't have the same cooldown, they don't have the same accuracy or range or base damage, it's gonna come out slightly different. So 49.99, 49.82, 49.8, 50.04, 49.68, 49.98, 49.89. I didn't design this system. Alright, I'm just trying to incorporate it into Stellaris, and I don't think it's a good system. Again, I think it's overly convoluted. You essentially, and I'll do a lot of the heavy lifting through the description here and telling you what exactly these do and what the difference is between them. Right now, you have to go and look at the stats of like, oh, well, okay, tachyon. It's got a range of 84. That's better than normal, but this has a range of 88. If I want first strike, then I should be using photon cannons. But, oh, well, what's the cooldown on those? Every 4.6 days? That seems pretty fucking good. Yeah, that's the equivalent, but the AI loves tachyon weapons, and I'm not sure why. I don't know. They all have the same weight to be used by the AI. I know. I programmed it. But this is what they prefer. Additionally, hangars have gotten a rework. Right now, again, it works the same way as gamma lasers. They only unlock at Strikecraft 3. I intend to do it for Strikecraft 1 and 2 as well. Essentially, the trade-off here is you have a light and a heavy hangar. A light hangar uses the stats of the prior tier of Strikecraft, but there are 1.5 times as many of them. Heavy, there are 75% as many Strikecraft, but they use the stats of a higher tier. I'll level with you, I don't really know how this plays out. I haven't done enough playtesting. They should be roughly equivalent, but this is to capture the core feature in Freelancer where you have different types of Strikecraft going from, you know, your, oh god, what is the ship you start out with? Freelancer, it's a Liberty ship, it's a patrol craft, it's a light fighter, and then you can get heavy fighters, super heavy fighters, and those are here, but we still need Strikecraft. Again, the GFX are stand-in. I'll replace these with relevant images from Freelancer, as I will with the weapons, but we're not there yet. Essentially, this is getting rid, by and large, of the rock, paper, scissors that Stellaris does, and puts us more into the everything is energy, weapons, and shields that Freelancer does. Now, to be fair, Freelancer also has a rock, paper, scissors of its own. It has 3 different types of shields and 7 different types of energy weapons. Each of those energy weapons are good against one type of shield, bad against another, and neutral to a third, except lasers, which I think are neutral to all of them, and pulse weapons, which are good against all of them, but terrible against hull. I am not going to do that system. Why? Because it's essentially the armor shield system plus a third factor, and I don't think the AI will be able to handle it very well, so I've kind of nixed that whole part of the equation. It's just shield and armor damage, so we can keep basically armor tech in the game. Armor, if you're playing this, don't build armor. Don't build armor. I mean, phase disruptors will ruin your day if you don't build armor, or pulse weapons, once I rename them. But, like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. There are additionally in the game a few events, but they all, like you saw with the Hyperlane events, there was no pop-up for that event. They just happen in the background, and you have to notice when they happen. I vaguely intend to make them actual pop-up events, but that's time and energy I haven't put into it yet. What are we at, 21 minutes? I don't have too much to stretch this out with right now. No, it's really fun. It's really fucking satisfying that I've gotten this to play out roughly in the shape that this typically does, the history roughly did. Don't crash. I just want to load game. Thank you. Oh, this was an observe game I was running the other night. Okay, yeah, let's just hop around and take a look at some of the snapshots we got. Now this game, if I'm right, I started out playing, yes. I started out playing Liberty until like 2300, 2200, 22 like 80 or 90 or something, and I'm like, good enough, and I clicked on observe and just let the universe run. Bretonia still exists, Kusari still exists, Rhywind still exists, Liberty still exists, and that might seem like a small accomplishment, but dog, it has not been. Oh, all of these have unique personalities and values and aggressive tendencies based on canonically what they do and did. What are we fighting over here? Currently the name of wars are bugged. I don't care. It's a very small problem. Oh yeah, the AI decided to become a vassal under Bretonia. I kind of hate the new vassal system. I'm sorry, Paradox, but it blows, and the AI becomes vassal to other AI way too readily when there's not that much of a discrepancy in power. That shit needs to be worked on. Oh dang, you've got Titans at this? Hey girl, show me your Titan. How are you building these? Oh, right, because this is prior to the weapon rework. So you're running a very vanilla build. Yeah, this would not work very well if I booted this up. Now, Gallia, we can see, hasn't connected yet. Same thing with the Coalition, they haven't connected yet. So they're kind of waiting in the wings. Around 2300 is when you really start seeing the major Liberty powers start beating up on each other. As we can see here, oh my god, Kusari's doing God's work. My god. Can I see a Kusari fleet? Nah, I don't need to. Currently, and this is I think every planet has something special about it. Some planets express this through deposits. Other planets express this through, not Denver, not Edmonton. These have deposits. Yep. Some additionally will have planetary modifiers that fit the lore. They're not just the right type. They also have deposits and modifiers, making them more in line with the lore. And that even goes for these weird fucking crossfire systems that I've renamed. Like Cardiff, no, sorry. Well, Cardiff is one, but I can't remember the name of it. Plymouth, no, Cardiff, is this Custodian? I think this is Custodian that I've changed. Some of these had really stupid fucking names, like Planet Blood and Planet Death and stuff like that. Like, Jesus Christ, you could cut yourself shaving on the edge of this. Hawaii was one. I gotta quit bashing and dunking on Crossfire. Like, the amount of work they've done for that mod, incredible. The quality of the writing for that work, incredible. But yeah, transforming the poorly written content there into like actually making sense for planets, that was a lot of work. Additionally, Discovery and Crossfire authors don't seem to know what diameter means. They describe a lot of gas giants as being massive or the largest ever recorded. And then they put the diameter at something that's like half of Saturn's. I'm like, dog, that's not a big gas giant. That is a freakishly small gas giant. So I had to do some guesswork with the gas giants to make them about the right size. Honestly, I gotta do some more balancing as far as economy goes, because not you. We'll see. New Tokyo here starts out with 24 trade value. It used to be higher. Trade value is assigned to where space stations are in the lore, major trade stations, and things like that. These 5s used to be 10, so this used to be a lot higher. Energy's very easy to come by because of this weird system where in Stellaris, electricity and money is the same fucking thing, which I think is a bad system, and they should just have a money and electricity. There should be a power, currency, mineral, alloy, food, consumer good. There should be more distinct resources, because this is just too vague and it fits too many things, especially in a really commerce focused game like Freelancer and converting over. So energy credits gets way too high. Alloys is, I'm actually pretty okay with where it's at right now. There are no relics. There are no new archaeology sites, though unfortunately vanilla ones still spawn. I'm probably getting rid of a bunch of those. I may add in new archaeology sites, but frankly, we don't know very much about Sprague or any of the other sites that have artifacts. We just know that they have artifacts. We don't know much about the dig or what the artifacts do, and that's part of the mystique and the mystery, right? So right now, they just produce artifacts and researcher jobs, and that's it. That's what they do. These sleeper pods, these are... So you'll note the population starts at 7, which is the absolute lowest it'll spawn in as. Then additionally, you can get back up to full starting population, but it takes time and money. If you start out in one of the major houses, which have a sleeper ship, if you start out with one of these that don't have a sleeper ship, you're in for a bad time. Well, you're in for a bad time in a number of ways, but you're in for a bad time. You don't start out with any jobs or bonuses. Really, you just start out with malices on top of malices on top of malices. And somehow, still, the Outcasts and the Corsairs do pretty okay. They do pretty okay. Oh god, I've done so much fucking work for this, I can't remember everything I've done. Mega structures are no longer buildable. You can restore broken ones, but there aren't any in the game right now. Planetary rings you can build, but there are no ring worlds, there are no Dyson spheres, there are no etc, 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 because you guessed it, they aren't in the lore. A lot of the early work I did for this mod was just saying no over and over and over to stuff that Stellaris introduced and is cool, but is power creep. And trying to wrangle it back into a Freelancer scale has been tricky. Right now, a thing I'm trying to keep an eye on, as far as that goes, is fleet capacity. I'm thinking of lowering fleet capacity across the board. However, if I do that, the AI will likely just have fleets consisting of corvettes. In Freelancer, corvettes don't exist. Gunships exist, destroyers exist, cruisers, battleships, all of those classes exist. Corvettes don't. What corvettes do in Stellaris is they fill a niche in Freelancer that's filled by fighters. But fighters are so fucking small that I don't... Right now, corvettes use the names of fighters, so they're essentially fighters by another name, also gunships by another name. And they've had their HP toned down significantly so that they perform a lot more like they do in Freelancer, but it's iffy. If you look at the size of the fleets in Freelancer that you actually see, Liberty has, what, like a dozen cruisers, 1 or 2 battleships, and an infinite number of fighters. And that's kind of how this should play out. But I don't know how to make that happen. Because it doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really make sense if you have these planets of billions of people and like a battleship. In terms of Stellaris mechanics, I would have to wrangle a lot of stuff to make that happen. So, to try to get closer to that, a Corvette rather than, I think vanilla is something like 30 days to build a Corvette, it now takes a year to build a Corvette. Destroyers take 2 or 3 years, cruisers take 4 or 5, battleships take 5 or 6. I think battleships are 5, cruisers 4, destroyers 3, corvettes 1, Titans like 10, which is a long time, and it makes wars really punishing. If you lose a war, like you lose a battle in a war, you're not going to bounce back from that in the course of that war. I think that's really cool. It makes losing a battleship a lot more meaningful and impactful. It makes war a lot more costly. Starbases initially are quite a bit more powerful than fleets, and we can see evidence of that here. Your fleet is like, yeah, fleet strength. No, that's not your fleet. Oh, this is. These 3 corvettes are barely more powerful than these 3 transport ships, and we can see that by hull point 40, armor 150, 100. 150, 100. Transports are too strong. Okay, whatever. Hull points have been dialed down to 100. Vanilla, they're 300, so these are a third as chunky as they are in vanilla. These are about twice as chunky. I've added a bonus to shields for space stations that didn't exist before, and a bonus to... You'll see Starport gives 2,000, and then it gets 2,000 additional more, and Starport gives 120, and it gets 120 additional more. HP, I haven't done that. No, they have base HP, but they have double the armor, double the shields on all stations. Because you very, very rarely in Freelancer see a station get destroyed, and it's a big fucking deal when you do. So this tries to push out the irrelevancy of space stations to a later and later and later phase of the game. And it works fairly well so far. Missiles are still in the game. I haven't talked about them. Missiles and torpedoes are still in the game, not swarm missiles. I've gotten rid of those. I have not reworked the damage on these yet. I intend to. There are missiles and torpedoes in Freelancer. I want to make these fit how those work more appropriately. What that's going to look like is these lose their shield penetration. And honestly, at that point, I'm not sure if missile weapons will be worthwhile or any good. I don't think they're any good to start with after a certain point. You may note the AI can no longer build, don't have pickets anymore. Oh, yeah. Another thing I've done, Christ, that one. I've not introduced these, but I've restored a few types of ships. Or ship sections. These were ship sections that used to exist in Stellaris but were taken out for balance reasons, and have names that make sense. Or God, the naming conventions at the time were great. The Soulbreaker. Look at that! On the humanoid ship set, that's so nice and round. I mean, it's not round, but in comparison to these block-ass, chalk-ass sections, it's so pretty. So I've restored a bunch of these that were removed for balance reasons. I've added a few. No, I cut that. I was looking for a hangar stern. I'm like, I have a hangar stern. No, what it was an artillery stern that I'd swapped out the large weapon slot for an additional hangar, and that got to be too much. There are a couple new cores now. I haven't renamed these. I did rename these. Huh, or one of these. Why didn't I do that? Dog, fuck if I know. So yeah, an incredible amount of work has gone into this, and it's not polished. It's not done yet. I mean, it's reasonably well polished, and it's a lot better than a lot of shitty mods out there on the Nexus, or not on the Nexus, on Steam Workshop. But yeah. What else? Oh, geography. Yeah, let's talk about stellar cartography, or stellar geography, stellography. Freelancer is defined in terms of, I'm going to use the word geography here, with regards to a few landmarks: the Barrier, the Edge Nebula, the Walker Nebula, and the Crow Nebula. Now, each of these in the lore are different and distinct in their own way. The Barrier is basically a large cloud of ice. The Crow Nebula is rich in gases useful for starship fuel. The Walker Nebula is rich in metals and minerals, and the Edge Nebula has really a lot of alien organisms, which are like microbial, bacterial, alien life that are useful in terraforming. In lieu of those, I've kind of made it fit that the, ice crystals of the Barrier, it's a stretch, but we had to put in rare crystals somewhere. Rare crystals only spawn in the Barrier. Exotic gases only spawn in the Crow Nebula. Volatile motes only spawn in the Walker Nebula. And the Edge Nebula doesn't really get anything right now. Instead, you just get all these fucking research bonuses for all of the alien organisms out here. Why are they called alien organisms and not alien microorganisms? Because they are microorganisms. Whatever, man. It's a game from like 2003. You don't need to nitpick that hard, Alex. You can still build planetary buildings to give you access to exotic gases and strategic resources. The nebula refineries no longer produce exotic gases. Basically, this doesn't make too much of a balance impact, but it does make it so that Kusari get access to the gas a lot more easily. There is incentive for Rylan to push on the Sigma systems for control of these. There's incentive for Bretonia to push into the Omegas for access to the Walker Nebula. There's incentive to try to form a, what is the word that I'm wanting here? Monopoly on these. Monopoly. I may make it so that you can no longer produce buildings with strategic resources that produce strategic resources and only have them come from these systems. That, however, would be such a massive balance shift that I would have to do a lot of work in making sure that's playing out okay. And I don't want to right now is essentially what that comes down to. Now, one of the first and most obvious requests I've gotten is like, oh, are you gonna do a ship set? No, dude. No, I'm not gonna make a fucking chipset from Freelancer. Why? Because the models are incompatible. I'd have to rebuild a bunch of them. And I don't know the first thing about 3D modeling. I may get to the point where I'm like, well, that's a major feature, and it would sell, if you will, really well. It's something you can see, it's very pretty, chipsets do like incredibly well as mods. That'd bring those customers in. I don't know why I'm doing this affectation. It's early and I'm tired. That'd be nice. That'd be great. I don't think I can do it. Personally, is way beyond my skill set. I mean, everything on screen right now was a month ago beyond my skill set, so maybe not, but I'm not so sure. Another request was for, and I haven't looked into this yet, the soundtrack from the original Freelancer. Now, I took a look. I said I hadn't looked into it, but I have. The Freelancer soundtrack is relatively small in comparison to modern games. Makes sense. I'm not sure what the legality of that would be. I may have to package it as a separate mod. In the way that you'll probably know a lot of popular Star Wars and Star Trek mods do, because intellectual property lasts a long fucking time. And some things, like names, can be used in, let's say, parody. We'll call this a parody for legal reasons. And symbols, sure, yeah, that's kind of stretching it. Like the story and everything else. I'm not trying to sell this as an original concept, right? Which is why this is okay. If I then put music or even graphical assets, really, that somebody else worked to create for a project and under a contract saying that it was for that project, if I then took their work, put into something else, that may be okay, but it really feels inherently disrespectful for some reason when it comes to music. I don't know, might do it. Really, the reason isn't the disrespect. I mean, the graphical assets right now, like the Symbols for Liberty, Kusari, and like the Megacorps that we were seeing earlier in the deposits, I didn't fucking make those. Music industry is a lot more litigious, is essentially what it comes down to. And people are more likely to care when it comes to audio for whatever fucking reason. And that's something I don't want to mess with, but I might, and it wouldn't hurt. And you know, if you really want the Freelancer soundtrack, I got a pro tip for you. You click this button, type in youtube.com, and in the search bar you type in Freelancer soundtrack, and you go and you click on this, and then you open the game back up, and there you go. Okay, all right, that's kind of a smarmy response, right? Yeah, which is very fitting for who I am. It's not the same, I get that, because what I would have to do to incorporate it into Stellaris is break it down into a series of tracks that you can access through the fucking music player, and you hop between them. Also, I don't know how music works in Stellaris. I think these are conditional based on what's going on. Some of these fire off, some of them don't. That'd be cool. I could learn about that. I'm interested. I just haven't done it yet. Custom civics for each of the nations is an intended feature. Right now, they have kind of good enough features, like they start out with Beacon of Liberty, which seems fitting, and they're fanatic, materialist, egalitarian. All right, the ethics I'm on the fence about. Close this. Exit here. The ethics are, like, good enough, but not really. Egalitarian, yeah, they're a republic. Democratic republic, there we go. And fanatic materialist, because they're not really pacifist. They're definitely not spiritualist. they're a little authoritarian in that most governments are authoritarian, but I can't have them be authoritarian and egalitarian. They're not pacifists, they're militarists, arguably, but making them militarist makes the AI too aggressive. So they're not militarists, not really. Liberty's never fought, according to the lore, any wars of expansion except against, like, zoners and non-nation states, which does make them militarist, but not with respect to the context of Stellaris, where we only care about nation states. Bretonia is a Byzantine bureaucracy. Their bureaucracy is referred to a lot, so that's what they have right now. They shouldn't be imperial. I mean, they should, but they shouldn't. They are a constitutional monarchy. At the beginning, they're not even a monarchy. Bretonia has the most interesting history as far as the formation of its government goes, and it's really just copy-pasting what happened with actual British history. Initially, there's no government. Then they try to form a government once they've started settling in, and then, like, the great nephew of Queen Elizabeth launches a coup with help from the military, making it a monarchy, an absolute monarchy. Then after a while, a monarch fucks up bad enough that they're overthrown, and there's a Bretonian Commonwealth. And then after the Commonwealth, they hand it over to a good monarch who reforms a lot of things, and then they've just stuck with that for a while. It's just British history. So they have Byzantine bureaucracy right now. They're authoritarian because I have to have this. They're egalitarian authoritarian. They're a weird mix between the two. But I don't want to make a new ethics system, so this is what we have. They're militarist. They fought wars of expansion and threatened war against Kusari for the Tau systems between them and Kusari, as well as fought actively, proactively against the outcasts to expand into the Tau systems. They're militarists. All these are militarists. Initially, this was to discourage them from going psionic, but I've since removed that ascension and technology from the game, and now this is kind of just a holdover. And they are all materialists because they all have a bunch of mega corporations, and they care more about materialism, because realpolitik. Kusari currently have an edited version of Anglers that don't force them to have a aquatic trait. It says adds the aquatic trait, it doesn't. This is to reflect that the vast majority of the economy of the Kusari and food comes from ocean worlds. This currently makes a really silly interaction on Kyushu. Kyushu is noteworthy for having a high food output and producing a lot of rice. It even has an in-game asset called Kyushu rice, commodity, in-game commodity. But anglers produce more food than farmers. Yep. Nope. I can't make it make sense, but this is a stand-in. Kusari are authoritarian, xenophobic materialists. I mean, all this is to a T. They fit very well in here. I'd like to have something in here about their feudal system, but because they're a shogunate, well, they're sometimes they're a shogunate, sometimes they're an empire. It really feels written by white people who have like a 1980s level of understanding of Japanese history and politics. I mean, a lot of these are farcical simplifications and stereotypes of what is more realistic. I'd like to have something like that in here, but I don't know. What we're likely to get is two civics once I get around to writing them. This is their military civic, and this is their society civic. And that this is their society civic is a lot harder to balance because I'm going to be combining a bunch of civics from different vanilla assets, basically squeezing them all together, toning them all down to have a lesser effect, and then giving that to everyone. I just haven't done it yet. Rhineland starts out as an empire. Now, in the original Freelancer, Rhineland is a parliamentary republic. But they only become that way after a coup in a certain year, and since this mod is meant to portray the beginning of the Sirius sector, they should start out as an empire. Actually, they start out at like a military commissariat, but whatever. Because I'm still struggling to figure out how we transition from one to the other, like, do I want to give the player a choice, or do I just want to be like, haha, guess what, bitch? Now your government's this. Or maybe I just want to do away with that at all and leave it up to player agency. I don't really know. Right now, it's just up to player agency, and that works well enough for me. So the flag's yellow instead of green, or the emblem is yellow instead of green. They have mining guilds. They should. Between Kruger and Dowman, they should have mining guilds. The effect from mining guilds sucks. Just, like, really sucks. So I want to change that, if nothing else, to make this, like, minerals from oh my god, what is it? The output from, they're not called star bases. They're called the things you build in orbit of planets. They are star bases, but they're not called star. You know, whatever the fuck. You know what I'm talking about. That would be a more appropriate bonus here. And Kusari should get like an energy bonus to those. Again, there's work to be done here. Gallia. Nah, I mean, they're authoritarian xenophobic militarists. It's just like some of these that don't quite fit right now. I want to make a new image, or what are these called? Appearance? Is it really just appearance? Sure, a new species appearance for the nomads. Unfortunately, there aren't good images of the nomads, which is intentional from Freelancer in order to keep them weird. So that's tricky. Also, I'm not a graphic artist. I am not. So that's kind of beyond me right now. I might create some stand-in. We'll see. This is good enough. These two, I don't know what the fuck to do with, because arguably they should be this. And it's gonna say, oh no, Outcast Navy, not okay. It would be okay. I just have to change a couple of things. I should make them a criminal heritage megacorp. But I really fucking hate the way these play mechanically. I don't like the way other empires engage with them as megacorps. Basically, they vassalize them, and it doesn't play out right. Barbaric Despoilers isn't really right either. It's more of a combination between the two. Also, the mercenary enclave capacity I'm probably editing out. Enclaves are very cool in Stellaris, not in this mod. I really hate the enclave system. I mean, in Stellaris, it's not balanced at all either. It's kind of broken. But especially here, it just feels very out of place. So, yeah. Mod doesn't seem like it has a lot in it right now. It do, though. It has quite a lot in it right now. This is a Kusari game I was actually playing. Yeah? No, it isn't. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. This is a game I started out as Kusari and then went to Observer. Yeah, wild. This is a good picture of what the initial galaxy or sector looks like once all the jump gates are connected. These are all the jump gate connections. Shit. Yeah, and no jump hole connections. All the jump hole connections connect things like Omicron Gamma and all of the... I keep wanting to call them DLC systems, the modded systems from Discovery and Coalition, but this fits really neatly and really well into this slow period of static borders and very unproductive wars that the time period saw in Freelancer history. Yeah, no, I'm pretty happy with it right now. There's more work I want to do, more polish I want to add on. And if you have thoughts or ideas, as for more content, as for specific kinds of polish, as for changes you would like me to make, please let me know, because I still am interested in this, and I'm still working on it, and I'm not financially incentivized to work on this, nudge nudge, wink wink, so Lord knows how long I'll be able to work on this, and how long my energy and willpower and curiosity will keep me going. So while, the iron is hot, strike. Let me know if there's stuff you want. I'm enthusiastically working on this. If you have ideas for ways that you want to contribute to it, I'm potentially open to that. Let me know. Regardless, it's been about an hour. Thanks for listening. Thanks for checking this out. I'm incredibly excited about this mod. I'm very happy with it. I'm pretty proud of it. It's not perfect. It's got quite a ways to go. I wouldn't begin to compare it to something as fully developed as the various Star Trek and Star Wars total conversions, but those are the goal. Those are really the, what is the turn of phrase here? Litmus test? It's not what I want, but sure, litmus test for what I want this to eventually look like. And you'll note those have teams of like a dozen people working on them, so maybe that's overly aspirational, but this is a much smaller universe, and maybe it's accomplishable. Who knows? We'll find out. Anyway, I'm gonna hop off if you're have breakfast and get my day started. I just wanted to share what's been going on, how much progress the project has made, and, well, yeah, until later, whenever that might be, I'm gonna say toodaloo. Take care. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.